This slidecast we're looking at payments. An engineering contract usually lasts for quite a long time and there is a lot of money involved. It is unfair to expect the contractor to be a bank basically for the client, and it's going to cost the client more. So what happens is, as the project proceeds, the contractor is given what's called progress payments, which are payments for works that he's completed on the project, rather than having them paid for the whole lot when the job's complete. So these are called progress payments. They're for the completed parts of the works or parts of the works that have been completed. So you might have a footpath that's maybe a kilometre long and you might have only done half of it, in which case you'd be paid for the half that's complete. The payments are usually made monthly, and as I said, they're called progress payments. From the progress payments, Section 12 of NZS 3910 covers the payments, the details, the right of the contractor to claim payments. So that's a right that has to be conferred by the contract, and the obligation of the client to pay him at regular periods. So retentions, section 12.3 gives the client the right to withhold some of that money that he owes the contractor. Oftentimes it's no more than 10%, going down to about 2%. If you have a look in the special conditions, you'll see that it varies. So it's a part of the progress payment retained by the principal. The idea of that is that it keeps the contractor honest. The principal is always owing him money. It's never worth the contractor's while to just pack up and leave the site, because then he'd lose those retentions. The amount retained varies according to the contract price. Section 12.8 is sometimes enacted, allowed, and that allows the contractor, gives him the right to claim for cost fluctuations. So for example, if steel was a certain price, say $100 a ton when he tendered, and then the prices go up and it's $120 per ton when he's doing the work, when he actually purchases the steel. If the cost fluctuation clause is allowed, then he'll be able to claim for that additional cost. This is really only relevant when you've got a really long-term project, 1 or 2 years. Appendix A of NZS 3910 on page 67 sets out the formula that's used to calculate that extra amount that's put on top of the contract rates. As I said, every month, most contracts give the contractor the right to claim money every month, progress payments. And there's a process that's set out in NZS 3910, and there's also the Construction Contracts Act, which also requires this to happen as well. And this is the process. The engineer receives a progress claim. He measures it up. Him and the contractor measure it up. The contractor prepares the claim. Then it goes to the engineer. The engineer has a look at it and says, is this fair or not? Then there's a provisional payment schedule. He prepares that, which says this is how much I think should be paid. Copies are sent to the principal and the contractor. Either one can object. If they don't, and you can see here that the principal has 3 days to receive it, have a look at it, and decide whether they're going to accept it or not. If they don't like it, then they have the right to complain to the engineer, and the engineer has 2 days to decide whether that complaint is relevant or not, and then he has to issue the final payment certificate. He then sends that to the principal, and the principal is obliged to pay what the engineer says he should pay. So the principal can have his word and say, I'm not happy with paying this, but at the end of the day, the engineer is the one who decides how much is to be paid in that progress payment, not the principal. So once again, there's the engineer with his judge's hat on, the engineer being neutral, being fair to both parties. The contractor can also object to that provisional payment schedule if he thinks that he's being hard done by. When the client, the principal, has received the payment schedule, he has 5 days to pay it, and to the contractor, and the contractor banks the check. Now this format has been in place, all these times that are here are cast in stone. You can't alter them. The reason for that is in the past principals have been slow in paying contractors. It's worth the principal to pay as late as possible because that's money he's got in the bank, money earning interest. And in the past they've overdone that, and contractors who have lots of money owing them have gone bankrupt because they don't have any cash flow. They're owed the money, they can't get it, they can't pay their bills, and they go bankrupt. And that it was a real problem a few years ago, and so now the law requires that these times that are shown here be strictly adhered to. Otherwise the contractor can claim damages, he can claim extra money off the principal. In reality, this part up here where it sort of appears that the engineer and the contractor do everything separately, what really happens is on site the contractor's representative and the engineer's representative get together and measure it all up by themselves together, and they agree between themselves as to what the claim should be. So the engineer's representative is normally involved in that, and that saves time later on where they've already agreed it. The engineer may overrule the engineer's representative, but that hardly ever happens. So they usually reach an agreement before they submit the claim. It just saves time. It means that there's no arguments happening in this later stage when the clock is ticking to get the claim paid. Section 12 also has what's called some sums. Okay, so 12.9 deals with what's called provisional sums. Now these are sums of money that are put into the contract, and the person that's writing the contract document, the tender document, will say provisional sum $100,000 or something like that. Okay, and that is an allowance for work or quantities undetermined at the time of tendering. So you might have something like landscaping. You've got a road and you've got landscaping, you think, yeah, it'll be about $100,000. So you put it in there and you put it in the totals column. The contractor doesn't, the tenderers don't have to put a number against it. You've just put $100,000 in there and you say it's a provisional sum. Then when the contract's underway, you get prices for doing the landscaping, or the contractor might go off and do that, and the money, and you agree a price, so it might be $70,000, and that is taken out of that provisional sum. So the idea of putting the provisional sum into the tender document is that there is a sum of money that is sitting there that is part of the contract price. So the money is there, it's in the budget, so to speak. If you didn't have it in the budget, then the contract price would be quite deceptive because there'd be items that hadn't been included. Now a variation on that is what's called a prime cost sum. This would be another allowance for materials to be supplied by the principal, or that are specified by the principal, or nominated subcontractor work. So once again, the principal will, the consultant, when he's doing his design, he might go and decide on that he wants this particular material, this particular pump or valve or whatever it is, and he'll get a price for it, and he'll put that price in as a prime cost sum. So it's already there, it's sitting in the total column. The contractor doesn't have to price it because it's already sitting there. Say with nominated subcontractor works, the consultant, when he's doing his design, if he decided that he wanted to have a nominated subcontractor, he would get prices from them, and he'd take those prices and he'd put them in as prime cost sums. So that once again, the money for that particular work that the contractor doesn't have to price is still included in that contract price, and therefore included in the contract budget. And the payment is usually the purchase price plus a percentage, so you need to include a percentage to allow for the contractor to get his profit. And the last sum there is in 12.11 is what's called a contingency sum. This is for unknown items or issues. Civil engineering in particular, there's a whole lot of uncertainty, there's a whole lot of things we don't know. We don't know what the ground's going to be like, we don't know if there's going to be a storm coming along and blow things over, we don't know if we're going to strike rock. So all these sort of things are unexpected, and to make sure that our contract price covers all of the works, we normally put what's called a contingency sum in, which is like a fudge factor. So you might have 10% on top of the contract price. So the contractor puts in his price, and you ask him to take his price and times it by 10% and put that in as well. So once again, there's a little bit of money there, that if something goes wrong or something's unexpected happens, you've got a little bit of money there that you can spend that is not going to blow the contract price out anymore. The important thing is that the contract price usually becomes the budget. That's the money that the amount of money that the principal is going to the bank and borrowing, and he's not very happy if he has to go to the bank and borrow more money. So with the contract price, you really want to have it including everything. So that's what the contingency sum and the provisional sums and prime cost sums are there for.